WATD presents John Paul, the Car Doctor. All things automotive. Have questions? Call 781-837-4900. Now, here's John Paul, the Car Doctor.
And good Sunday morning, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Car Doctor program on 95.9 WATD. My name's John Paul, the Car Doctor, here to help you with your car problems. And, I don't know, 2 weeks ago we had winter, it seemed like. Temperature dropped. People were talking about turning their heat on. Now people have their air conditioning on. They're complaining about it's hot and sticky out. Weather is weird, and, but it really, talks about you really have to take care of your car to make sure it's going to get it through our wacky New England seasons here. And if you're thinking about car shopping, you might be a little bit shocked about, are there still inexpensive cars around? I got an email this week from somebody. They are saying what they might be buying could be their last car. They don't know. They haven't bought a car in about 10 or 12 years. They're looking to buy something brand new. They're looking to buy something under $24,000. It's getting harder and harder to be able to do that. And with us is our friend Karl Brauer from iSeeCars.com, a fantastic place to do a bunch of car shopping. Karl, good morning. And are sub $20,000 cars, are they gone?
They're pretty much gone and not just on the new market, but on the used market too. That's the really amazing and somewhat depressing thing is you just can't get a car for $20,000 really anymore. Not any kind of recent car.
Except for that week-long window or maybe hour-long window, you could buy a Maverick pickup truck, right?
Yeah, if you can actually find one sitting on a lot and they're not asking over MSRP, which would be two big ifs, then maybe you could, yeah. Maybe
you could. I remember when that was first introduced and they said it was going to be, like $19,995 plus like delivery charges. And they're like, we kind of hope it sells, and they couldn't make them fast enough afterwards. So it is sort of interesting. The other thing too is has the charm kind of gone off of EVs these days? Are EVs sitting on the lot a little bit longer than they have been?
They're sitting on the lot a lot longer, and they're selling at much lower prices too. So there definitely has been a shift in the EV market over the past 12 months, and we've watched prices dropping consistently on a year-over-year basis, meaning when you compare, say, January to January of 22 and 23, they were down 8%. By June, they were down 30% this past June from a year earlier on the used car market. And it's about the same story. It's like between 15 and 20% on the new market. They're also sitting on dealer lots longer. They used to sit on lots. Average time was about 25 days to sell an EV. Now it's over 50 days. They're sitting longer and they're selling for lower prices, which pretty much reflects a drop in consumer interest or demand.
Do you think it's because, gas prices have gone up, so it's not like people have said, gas is too expensive, I'm going to try electric. Do you think it's just finally the kind of early adopters of battery electric vehicles kind of bought all they're going to buy, and that's about it?
I think that's exactly what it is. And I think, there's never like a on-off switch. There's a, spectrum, a continuum of likelihood to buy an electric car. And the early adopters were very likely, and I think most of them have bought. Then you have kind of a next stage of people who might buy. And I think a lot of the might buyers have pulled back because of everything from inflation and interest rates, which have driven up the price of cars, as we know, and driven up the price of financing cars. And EVs are always more expensive than the equivalent gasoline car. So if you were thinking of spending $30,000 and you thought you might get an EV, and now you realize that you're going to have to take out a bigger loan on the EV than the same car that would cost you $24,000 as a non-EV, and you have to pay more for financing that more expensive car, that more expensive EV, and you're kind of worried. You've heard about friends getting laid off, seen headlines about things getting laid off. You're spending more on eggs and milk, and now you're about to try a brand new type of vehicle you've never driven before, an EV. And people get less risk willing. They get more risk averse when economies are looking shaky versus when they aren't. So all those things come together, I think, to work against EVs.
Yeah, and I'm not a fan of leasing, and maybe it's generational. I don't, maybe because I'm old, I don't know. But I think if, when people ask me about an EV, I'll usually suggest leasing one because the technology is changing pretty fast, and you hate to go out and buy the latest, greatest EV and find out, oh, next year they come out with exactly the same car for a little bit less money, and it has 100 miles more range because they figured out how to get more energy inside the batteries, and all of a sudden your car isn't worth as much when it's time to trade it back in.
That's 100% true. We're definitely in that environment, and here's an example of what you're talking about, right? We've pretty much gotten all the car companies to buy into I believe it's the North American Standard, it's called, or whatever, for the plug. It's essentially the plug that Tesla uses. So
we can call it VHS.
Yeah, precisely.
Yeah,
VHS versus beta.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is, now we know that that's the plug that every car will be using over the next 2 years, which means every car that's been built right now or is even being built in the future and is going to be sold in the next few months without that plug is already obsolete. And if you're savvy enough to be seriously considering an EV, you might have already figured out, well, why would I go buy the Model X, Y, Z, or even the Model X you could buy because that's the Tesla that's already got it. But if you're buying some random EV that's not a Tesla, you have to know right now, if you buy it, well, I'm going to have to be futzing around with an adapter within a couple of years because all the charging stations and all the other newer cars are going to have this other system that Tesla already has.
Yeah, I have I don't have home charging, but I have a charging cable. The company was called Juice. The company called Juice Plus, and basically it plugs into anything on the wall. So it plugs into 240 volts or 110 or 110 at 20 amps. It's got a billion adapters that go with it. And I'm like, oh, this is going to work great until now they came out with this new thing. So now I need an adapter for the adapter kind of thing. And it's just kind of, and I don't know how it is out on the West Coast where you are, but it seems here on the East Coast, Kia and Hyundai don't include charging cables with their cars to convenience charge.
I think that is true. I don't think that those are come with the cars like they do with a lot of vehicles.
Yeah. So the first time I think the first time I drove evaluated a Kia, and then I had to drive 25 miles to the high-speed charging station to recharge it, which I was like, oh, I'm never doing this again. This was a little annoying. So yeah. So like you said, adapters and ease of use sometimes with electric vehicles. Until you find your rhythm, I guess, I can kind of see why some of those electric vehicles are sitting on the lot. You guys at IC Cars do all kinds of reports and studies, even to the point where the cheapest place to buy cars, cheapest states to buy in, right? Yeah. No, we were looking at most and least expensive places to buy cars, and it turned out that apparently Cleveland and Akron, Canton, that kind of metro area, usually these places are grouped into metro areas as opposed to a specific city, but they're considered close enough to be a metro area. Cleveland, Akron, and Canton have the cheapest or lowest priced used cars to buy right now. They're 8.1% below, or $2,769 below the national average. That's the least expensive. And the most expensive place to buy a used car right now is West Palm Beach, Florida, which is 9.9% above the national average, or about $3,400 above the national average. So a friend of mine who just moved down there and bought a car because he lived in Manhattan just paid too much for it, right?
Yeah, unless he stopped in Canton on the way down to pick up his car, which is, it's funny, John Paul, because I've been saying this for years to people. It's like, look, it's clear that most people would expectantly look in their normal local metro area if they're going to buy another vehicle, new or used. And there's nothing wrong with starting out there. But we all have computers. We all have databases and access to national pricing on sites like iccars.com, where you can see dealer listings from across the country. Why would you not expand beyond your local area just to at least get a sense of whether you could save some money? I'm in Orange County, south of LA. So I can look in a 100-mile range and pull in all of L.A. and pretty much all of San Diego County from where I am right now, too, and that's 100 miles. So it's still an afternoon to go retrieve the car. And if I find a car down in San Diego that's markedly cheaper than it is 100 miles north in Los Angeles, that's a no-brainer. And you can get big swings. You can get big swings where you can get a couple $1,000s off of a car. And even if you have to go and spend $300 on a Southwest Airlines flight or less, hopefully, and pick the car up and come back, and it takes you 24 hours. If you saved $2,400, that's $100 an hour. That's not bad pay to go get a car that you're buying. So I always tell people, look around, use your computer that makes it silly easy to sit in your house and shop nationally and see where these cars are located that might be priced lower than your local area.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. When I like a lot of people, do a lot of kind of, daydreaming sometimes on the internet, and I go to iccars.com and I'll look for something. My wife years ago had a Volkswagen Cabrio. She loved that car. We've replaced it with 2 different convertibles since then. She hasn't liked either of them that much, and every once in a while I look and I'm like, let's see if there's a good one somewhere. And I hit that unlimited range, and then all of a sudden you see one that looks to be in pretty good shape, has low miles, and came from a place where stuff doesn't rust, and you're like, hey, maybe this is actually worth going to take a look at. And you're right, if you're able to take advantage of some lower airfare, and airfare just recently posted prices have come down on some tickets, and I'm a cheap flyer, so I fly all the bargain stuff, Spirit and Allegiant and Frontier. And you might be able to jump on a last minute Allegiant flight or something, get to where you want to go for under $100, and like you said,
Yep.
save literally thousands on the price of a car, or buy something interesting that you always wanted.
Right. I, believe it or not, picked up a 1988 Firebird Formula 350 for my daughter because she fell in love with them as soon as she saw them and wanted one. And I found it in Iowa City, Iowa. So I used my Delta miles and flew to Minneapolis. That was the closest place. I got a rental car. I drove down and made sure the car was fine, and then drove the car back to Los Angeles. And $8,250 is what I paid for that car, and it was in extremely clean shape. And I just couldn't go wrong, even with the time it took and energy to fly there and drive it back.
Well, and on top of that, it becomes a little adventure, right?
Right. Well, I love fly-in, drive-home stories. I've done that so many times with cars because to me that's exactly what you said. It's like, to me, this isn't a negative. This is a positive. The fact that I searched out my car and I went and retrieved it and drove it home is a fun way to start the ownership experience to me.
And I, to badly quote a song, it's not about the destination; it's about the journey, right?
Right.
Yeah.
No, well, I had a friend when I was growing up who gave me great advice. He says, anything that makes a good story. If it's a good story, I'm in. So.
There you go. 2 things that not on the IC Cars website, or maybe it is and I missed it. Are we starting to get through the semiconductor shortage? Are we starting to see a little bit more inventory coming onto dealer lots, both used and new?
We absolutely are. I would say that we're pretty much at normal production capacity now without really any hiccups. What's tricky is that we've got, 2 to 3 years, depending on how you define it, where we didn't have normal new car production, and that built up a demand. And I always tell people it's like a dam. You pull the lever and you don't let any water out, the dam builds up behind there. You can pull the lever at some point in the future and let the water go out, but the water behind the dam doesn't instantly go back to the quote-unquote normal level. It has to drain for a while. That's where we are with new car production. We've gotten it back to normal, but we haven't had it back to normal for 3 years. We've had it back to normal for less than a year, 6 months, depending on how you look at it. So we've got a couple years to dig out. And then on the used side, same thing. We had restricted production for model years 20, 21, and 22 for sure. Well, now used cars, if you look at them as 1 to 5 year old cars, that's how we define them traditionally at IC Cars. Those 20 to 23 model years, 20 to 22 model years, they're right in the middle of the 1 to 5 year old used cars right now, aren't they? So again, we've got to wait till those things get moved through the picture. The other thing is this picture like a snake, and he ate some giant, rat. Well, the rat has to move through him, and there's this big bump that goes along as it moves through the snake. That's where we are, except maybe you want to call it an extra thin part of the snake, if that's what you want to consider our car supply. And it has to move through the next 1 to 5 years before we're done.
And then we have a possible UAW strike coming up, right?
Well, yeah, there you go. See, and so we think we're done with this new car restricted production process, and we're about to hit a strike on Thursday that's going to start it all over again, at least for the domestics. And what will be interesting, John Paul, is where will we have people who were thinking of a domestic and now they feel like I'm back to COVID times. I go to my Dodge dealer or my Ford dealer, and there's nothing on the lot. But there's plenty of Toyotas and Hondas across the street. There used to be nothing on any of the new car lots 2 years ago. Now there's only nothing on the domestic lots. I'll go buy a Honda or Toyota. I mean, I hope the UAW and the automakers are keeping this in mind, because, the only thing worse than not having cars when you want to sell them is not having cars when you want to sell them, people want to buy, but competitors having the cars, because you lose market share and you lose buyers, and they may or may not come back in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. One last question. Did anyone go to the Detroit Auto Show?
It's coming up I think it's coming up, is it this week or next? I don't know. It's coming soon. I am not going, not after last year's experience.
Yeah,
so.
That's it. I'm sitting here, and there's my lanyard is dangling off a doorknob, and I'm like, I don't think I know anyone who's actually going. So, yeah.
How the mighty have fallen, right, John?
I know.
Oh, my gosh.
I know, exactly. Well, for more information, real easy, go to iSeeCars.com. And real quickly, the VIN check. You guys have this other app that you can do a little bit of research on the vehicle identification number, right?
Yeah, we have a free VIN check lookup. You just come in, you put in your 17-digit code, and we'll give you a whole lot of information about the car, its history, its pricing, current pricing trends for it. It's a pretty amazing deal for free.
Yeah. Karl, I want to thank you for taking some time out of your Sunday morning. I know it's 8 o'clock out where you are, so I want to thank you for getting up a little bit early and maybe joining us on the Car Doctor program.
It's always fun joining you, John Paul. You guys have a great rest of your day.
All right, you as well. Take care. That was Karl Brauer from iSeeCars.com. We need to take a break and pay some bills. My name's John Paul. This is a Car Doctor program. You're listening on 95.9 WATD. We'll be right back.
AAA is with you at every moment in your life. They have 24/7 roadside assistance, which covers you in any car you're driving or riding in, even a rental or your friend's wheels. They have great member rates on home and auto insurance, savings on travel, hotels, and rental cars, and discounts on hundreds of your favorite brands. You're covered on and off the road. Learn more at aaa.com/join.
Jeep Adventure Days are going on right now at Quirk Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram on Route 139 in Marshfield. Quirk Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram is one of the largest dealerships of its kind in New England, featuring an incredible inventory of brand new Jeep Wranglers, great customer service, and Quirk's Chrysler Certified Service Department. Quirk Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram is accessible from all across the South Shore, just off Route 3 at the new Exit 27.
Quirk works to save you money. Quirk works for you.
Visit QuirkChryslerDodgeJeepRam.com.
Talk radio with a South Shore point of view. Hi, I'm Kevin Chachi. Join me tomorrow for Monday Night Talk, where the South Shore comes to talk. Tomorrow night after the 6 o'clock news here on 95.9 WATD.
Make an appointment Sunday morning at 11 for John Paul, the Car Doctor, on 95.9 WATD. Now, back to the Car Doctor.
And welcome back to the Car Doctor program. Well, it's time to talk about the car that got me around. I guess a couple weeks ago now. I sort of skipped over it, I guess. It's the Honda Accord Sport. And like all of Hondas now, when it has the word sport in it, it means it's a hybrid. So the latest Honda Accord Sport is a hybrid that competes with the likes of, say, the Toyota Camry hybrid or a Hyundai Sonata hybrid. The Accord's powered by a turbocharged 2-liter gasoline engine and 2 electric motors that develop a combined horsepower of 252 and 273 foot-pounds of torque. Torque is the thing that pushes you back in the seat. Horsepower is what makes you move fast, but horsepower is something that happens at higher RPMs. Torque is the thing that when you step on the accelerator at the stop sign, that's what you feel. It powers the front wheels through a improved continually variable transmission. This transmission, to me, I think they finally got it right. It feels right. It just, it feels like it works the way it's supposed to. And I think it's a really good match for this. Honda uses a 2-motor hybrid system that can operate either as a series or parallel hybrid. Most of the time the system operates as a series hybrid, so basically it's an electric propulsion motor that drives the wheels directly while the gasoline engine is connected to the electric motor sort of as a generator starter thing. power to run the electric motor. But then there's certain times it switches over to a hybrid where you have both the gasoline engine and the electric motor working together. So there's times such as cruising at the highway, the system switches to parallel hybrid. It sometimes runs in just full electric mode. There's a lot going on under the hood that honestly you don't even notice. If it wasn't for the display screen telling you what was going on, I don't think you'd even notice. It just feels normal. And when you decelerate, just like a lot of cars, it takes the energy from the braking system and helps recharge the battery. And this isn't a plug-in. This is just a conventional hybrid. Steering and handling are also quite good. The larger 19-inch wheels and tires offer not just a sporty look, but also give the Accord Sport a little bit of more road handling, more kind of, using the sport in its name. Transmission also has a sport setting, which gives a bit of boost to performance. According to the EPA, the 2023 Accord Hybrid is good for 51 miles per gallon in the city, 48 on the highway. During my time, I averaged about 48 miles per gallon in a mix of mostly city driving. Most Honda products seem to have a little bit more road noise than the competition. It seems like they don't insulate quite the same. The latest Accord sounded quieter than any Accord that I've driven in the past few years. Probably better to better insulation, but also they use electronic noise canceling. So they actually make sound to drown out sound. And that's in quite a few vehicles today. New vehicles today have advanced driver assistance systems. We see all kinds of technology, and Honda Sensing Suite has all of it. Driver attention systems, tells you if it's time to take a nap or not. Automatic emergency braking, road departure correction, adaptive cruise control. I was talking with the folks from the AAA Engineering Group this week, and we were talking about automatic emergency braking, and they're going to be doing a bunch of tests out in California. They try to wait till the triple-digit temperature numbers have dropped down a little bit because they do it out on a racetrack, and they're going to do some of this automatic emergency braking at a little bit higher speeds this time. They actually have they call it their soft car, which is sort of a foam car that can drive around, and that's what they use to run into. The soft car is only good for about 50 miles an hour, so they can only test this so fast. It also has auto high beams. The interior is comfortable, supportive seats. It's 6 feet tall. I found enough leg room, but taller drivers may feel a little bit cramped. If you're 6'2", 6'3", 6'4", you may find there's not quite enough leg room. The controls are straightforward, nicely laid out, with the exception of the radio, which does not have a physical tuner button. I hate that. I also appreciated the more traditional shifter. Rather than push-button or rotary knob, the rear seat can comfortably fit 2 adults, 3 at least for shorter trips. Overall, visibility front and rear, even with the new sportier profile of the Accord, is pretty good. Interior storage is also well thought out with a decent glove compartment, center console, cup holders, other bins and cubbies. The hybrid battery is mounted under the rear seat, leaving a generous-sized trunk. I think it's about 17 cubic feet. Unfortunately, Honda chose to use a mobility kit, so a compressor and some sealer, rather than a temporary spare, which is sort of interesting because there was this big styrofoam thing that held this little air compressor, and I'm pretty sure a spare tire could fit in there. And why? I know it's about weight. They want to save weight. You save weight, you make more gas mileage, but I would trade a mile per gallon all day long to get a real spare tire. But doesn't seem to be the case. The latest Honda Accord Sport Hybrid is a wise choice. Buyers looking for a sedan. Not that many. Everybody's kind of in a drive around. Everybody's in an SUV, but some people like sedans. And if you're looking for a sedan that's comfortable with very impressive fuel economy and a really good range, I think when the tank was topped off, it had over a 500-mile range. So, in theory, if you were driving from here to Florida, which I've done 4 times now, I guess, you could do it with 3 stops, which would be pretty good. Something to do. Well, it's not quite the end of summer. That's still a way off. at least according to the calendar. And you shouldn't try to let the calendar rule your life anyway. Let the weather rule your life. And it's not the end of car show season. And with us is Gregg Anderson. And Gregg, welcome to the Car Doctor program. But you got a couple of car shows coming up in the very near future, right?
We do. We had two very large car shows, both for good charities, and that's what the car hobby is all about, is helping others.
It really is, and you kind of look at some of these things. I know here in the town that I'm in, there's a car show pretty much every Saturday night, and it could be to drop off food for the food pantry, leave a donation, and sometimes it's just donations to kind of keep the hobby alive. Sometimes you kind of work it all together. So tell us about you have two shows coming up. Tell us about the first one.
First one is on September 17th, which is a week from today. It's in Waltham at a beautiful estate called the Gore Place, which is right off of Route 20 on the Watertown line. And we've got a whole array of cars that are coming, not just, and I don't mean that lightly, the cars that you see at your everyday car show, but we've got TV and movie cars coming. We've got pre-war automobiles, pre-1941, which we opened that up as a new category this year, and a great last-minute group, the Yankee Wood Club, which is the Woody Wagon Club.
And you mentioned so many good things in there. The movie cars. People love to see those movie cars, and they have some of them have some sort of sad stories. Like it could be some cool car that was in a movie, and they found it in a junkyard 20 years later, and someone decided to restore it, or they were recreations of some of those original cars, right?
Right, and along with those movie cars, we're going to have a special guest, Tom Samanto, who was the builder of the General Lee and other cars from the Dukes of Hazzard.
Wow!
He's going to be, he's Tom's coming to the show, and it's going to be a great show.
And I understand. I'm sorry to interrupt you. And I understand. Ernie Bach sold his Batmobile to he recently sold it. I think he sold it to a football player.
Oh, I did hear that, but I don't know which football player.
Yeah. But yeah, it's so the idea that again some of these cars are pretty iconic, and I think the General Lee car, that show was so popular in that it wasn't on for that long, I guess, but that car was so popular, and there was so many clones of that car, and I know where they filmed that down in Georgia. I guess they had dozens of similar-looking cars for all the crazy jumps and stuff they did, because they wrecked a bunch of those.
Exactly. And Tom's book outlines the building of the General Lees and the police cars, Daisy Duke's car, a Jeep, and that event is I misspoke. That event is on the 24th of September at Gore Place, not the 17th.
Okay.
The other event that we're having is on the 17th in Auburn, Massachusetts at High Octane Classics, which is the largest exotic and muscle car dealer in the Northeast. They're hosting a event for disabled American veterans, and the car community is coming out to support our vets.
And that's always great to hear, and I'm sure, like you said, it's one of the it's the largest muscle car collector car shop in the area. You're going to have some of the cars that are for sale, kind of on display as well.
Oh yeah, definitely. We have 32,000 square feet of showroom and workspace, and we we give tours of the facility. We show people, the work being done on the different cars, and obviously our showroom's open at the same time.
So people get to look at the cars that show up for the show that help support the veterans, but also at the same time they can look at some stuff that maybe there's some car that they always dreamed of. I know I just quickly looked at the web page, and for people looking for, say, especially if they're at a certain age where they always dreamed about a certain car when they were a teenager, all of a sudden now you have I think there's 3 or 4 '69 Camaros that you have for sale.
Yeah, we deal with a lot of people looking for Camaros, Chevelles, particularly 69 through 71 Chevelles, and Grand Nationals from the 80s.
And those were pretty interesting cars because they were almost people opened the hood, and even though there was a pretty good sized turbocharger, it was still, at the end of the day, it was still a V6, and people kind of went, oh, it's a V6, and then they realized how fast they were.
And they were very fast. They still are.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So one more time, give us the dates where we can when these events are going to be, and is there someplace else where we can find out more information about it? Do they have a Facebook page or a web page or something for either of them?
Yes, highoctaneclassics.com, and you can call 508-641-9888, and for the car show in Auburn, and which is for the vets, and motorheads.net for the Motorhead car show.
Well, that sounds interesting, and I think one of the things that I've always wanted to see people do is if you have kids and grandkids, bring them to a car show. Let them get interested in what's going on. You might find that your kids or your grandkids or whatever the case it is have a real interest in some of these vehicles, and maybe they want to be able to join you. And I was talking to somebody just in the past couple of weeks that they're spending time with their daughter doing a restoration on a car, and they said, my daughter and I kind of didn't really get along that well. They got along, but they said they never had anything they could do in common, and they ended up buying a Jeep, and they're sort of doing not heavy restoration, but they're doing stuff that just makes some time together to put on some accessories and do some stuff, and they said it really helps. So this is one of these things that you can really look at. Bring people to the show with you. It's going to be for charity, so that's even better. And enjoy the time.
We find a lot of father and son, father and daughter projects for people, and we get a lot of people coming into the showroom. Kids had never seen a Lamborghini Countach or a Ford GT, and they get to see those cars there, and we get to tell them about them.
Yeah, I think it's really good, and it's fun to do, and I just had it's motorheadscarclub.net. So motorheadscarclub.net, and it explains everything about the classic car show. There's going to be at Gore Place. I've never been to Gore Place, so that sounds like an interesting place to see. It sounds and it's just something that is going to benefit the community as well. So it looks like there'll be a fun time, and based on some of the pictures I saw from last year's show. There was some great stuff that showed up there.
The interesting thing about Score Place that's automotive related is it was the home in the early 1920s and late teens to Charles Metz, who produced the Mets automobile.
Oh, okay.
So it was actually the factory showroom and offices, and his home, and the factory was across the street from the home.
Well, it's sort of interesting how Massachusetts, so many things were built in Massachusetts back in the old days. Some of the different vehicles that were built there, and whether it's Henry Ford almost built Greenfield Village out in Sudbury at the Wayside Inn, and whether it's Rolls Royces that were built in Springfield, or some of these car companies that sort of started in the area and continued, and the factories we had, everything from building Edsels to Oldsmobiles.
Yes, Charles Metz built everything from bicycles to automobiles and motorcycles. He started in Waltham building motorcycles. He was the first person to take a bicycle and put a motor on it, and he grew that into a company in Brockton called Marsh Metz. He teamed up with the Marsh brothers, and they created a very popular motorcycle.
Wow. Well, so we all learned a little something. Hey, Gregg, I want to thank you for taking a little time out, and it's like I said, it's car show season. It's a good time to do this, and anything that relates to the old car hobby, you have the phone number. Call in whenever you want.
Great, and so September 17th in Auburn at High Octane, 141 Washington Street. And September 24th in Waltham at Gore Place. And we hope to see a large crowd out at both shows to support the causes.
Yeah, and go to both websites to check out information about it. Whether it's High Octane's website, you can see some of the cars that are there for sale, beautiful looking cars that are there for sale, as well as the Motorhead's Car Club .net website, where you can see some photos of last year's show. You'll see some of the amazing cars that showed up there, and you can get more information about the 2023 car show. Again, Gregg, thanks for taking a little time and joining us.
Thanks for having me, John.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
So it's still car show season, and it's one of those things that I don't have any room for a car. I don't have any. I love to be able to own collector cars, but the idea of having a collector car of something you can own and enjoy is always great. I've owned a couple of old and weird cars in the past, but the idea of being able to own them, not really in the cards right now, but on the other hand, I am able to still go and enjoy them with people who like to enjoy these cars. So you get to learn a lot, you get to find out a lot of things, and it's always fun at the same time. Why don't we take another break, pay some bills? My name's John Paul. This is the Car Doctor program. If you would like to join us, our phone number is 781-837-4900. Maybe you have a car show going on, and you can give us a call at 781-837-4900 and talk to you about your car show. Maybe you have car problems. We have a bunch of stuff in the mailbag to talk about, questions that came in this week. We'll talk about those as well. Our phone number again, 781-837-4900. We'll be right back.
Let's get real. Unlock your potential with an Abington Bank Get Real checking account. When you're always on the go, you need a bank that doesn't hold you back. Well, can you say no fees? That means no monthly account fees, free mobile banking, and free online bill pay. Plus, you can get a cash bonus when you sign up. Visit your local branch or abingtonbank.com to open an account today. Free yourself from fees with a Get Real checking account at Abington Bank. Unlock your potential. Member FDIC.
AAA is with you at every moment in your life. They have 24-hour-7 roadside assistance, which covers you in any car you're driving or riding in, even a rental or your friend's wheels. They have great member rates on home and auto insurance, savings on travel, hotels, and rental cars, and discounts on hundreds of your favorite brands. You're covered on and off the road. Learn more at aaa.com/join.
Different, it's gonna be great.
Hey, I'm Ashley Jordan. Tune in to Twilight Showcase Radio, hosted by Sandy Stride and Keith James on 95.9 WATD and 95.9WATD.com. Search for Twilight Showcase Radio on Facebook and visit twilightshowcase.org.
Twilight Showcase, tomorrow night from 7 to 9 on 95.9 WATD. Make an appointment Sunday morning at 11 for John Paul, the Car Doctor, on 95.9 WATD. Now, back to the Car Doctor.
And welcome back to the Car Doctor program on 95.9 WATD. Well, somebody asked me the other day, where can I read your question and answer columns? Well, we've expanded a little bit. For the last 4 or 5 weeks, we've been in the Hartford Current. So if you're listening online in the Connecticut area and you pick up the Current, I think it's on Sunday. I got a Google alert that it was posted yesterday, but that doesn't always mean anything. I get a Google alert that my column in the Providence Journal, which runs on Sundays, gets posted online on Fridays. I suspect it has something to do with when people work the website work. I don't know. So also, if you're listening, if you're one of the few listeners we have a few that listen to New York Newsday on Friday in print or the digital version. Our friend Bob Bosworth at the Quincy Sun runs my column about once a month out in sort of the Auburn-ish area, where we're talking about the Auburn Car Show. There is a great little weekly called the Yankee Express and the Blackstone Valley Express. They run my columns every time they publish their papers, and I think they do 5 editions a month. So they run the columns there. Boston.com and the Boston Globe Online post it pretty randomly during the week. Sometimes it posts on Friday. Sometimes they'll post one on Monday and another one on Wednesday. You never really know, but go to Boston.com or the Boston Globe and click on the auto section and you'll find my columns there. So a lot of these columns sort of generate the questions, as well as people who listen to the radio show that decide they're going to send me an email, and you can do that at jpaul@aaanortheast.com, and we can answer your questions there too. But right now, let's talk to Tom from Weymouth. Tom, good morning.
Yeah, good morning, John. John, now that going into seasons change, so the fuel that'll be coming in for the winter, what is the difference in the summer fuel? What's different about the fuel?
Summer fuel is designed not to evaporate as quickly. So remember in the old days, you'd see a car parked in the sun and you'd see like fumes coming off of it?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, that's the gasoline that's made for summertime doesn't evaporate the same way. And winter fuel is actually designed to light off at a lower temperature. So one of the things that can kind of happen, and winter fuel has less energy in it. So that's why in the wintertime, it's not just the cold weather and the warm-up that affects your fuel economy. It's the fuel just doesn't have the same amount of energy in it, because that lower energy lets it start easier in cold weather. But one of the weird things that sometimes happens is we'll have cold weather fuel, which we start to get into the tank sometime in the next month or month and a half or so. And it'll be all good until we have one of those weird Februaries that maybe all of a sudden it's 70 degrees for one day in February. And people's cars don't start. And they're like, what happened to my car? Why isn't it starting? Or it starts really hard because the car doesn't like that fuel. The same thing can happen is if you got gas for your lawnmower over the course of the summer, and you have a 2, 3, 5 gallon gas can, and you're like, oh, this is good. There's plenty of gas for my snowblower, and you put that summer gas in your snowblower on a 5-degree day, and you pull your arm off trying to get the snowblower started because it's summer gas and it doesn't want to start in lower temperatures.
Right. Is any one of those fuels better for, like, storage? Like, is it better to get some summer fuel now if I'm not going to use my lawnmower anymore, or wait till it put, you know what I'm just saying, other than the other things we do for it?
No, not really. It's, gas gets stale, and using a product like Stabil or something, will help. But try to let, for your lawn equipment, try to let your fuel kind of, or try to let the weather dictate your fuel, I guess. So I didn't believe it would really happen, and I had some treated summertime fuel. I think I got it in September or so, and we had a Halloween snowstorm, probably 10 years ago or something. And I went to go start my snowblower. I thought I was going to have to get like rotator cuff surgery afterwards. I pulled the rope so many times to get it going. And finally, when the engine sort of got hot, it started up and it ran okay. But it was one of those things that was hard starting, and I ended up draining the fuel. Got a fresh gas can of fuel, and that solved it. The other thing you can do, and it's expensive, is you can get that non-ethanol fuel, which is sort of which will give you that sort of a mix of the right chemistry, and that will allow for easy starting. I don't know. The cheap side of me has a real hard time paying like $10 a quart for gasoline.
Yeah, that was my question. Actually, I was going to ask you about ethanol. So in Massachusetts, we have to have it. Is that correct?
Right. A lot of states,
okay.
Yeah.
But somebody was talking to me, and they said, I was up to Maine, and for a week or so, and I got gas, and it seems like I got better mileage out of my vehicle up there, where it's a non-ethanol mandate. Which one would give you better fuel mileage? One with ethanol or not?
Well, actually, ethanol has more energy in it, but it has more energy in it when you can stuff more air into it. So what happens is ethanol, race cars run ethanol because they can jam a whole bunch of air in with a turbocharger or supercharger, get more power. The downside is they get less mileage. And the same thing happens when you add ethanol to fuel. So right now we have, 10% ethanol mixed with our gas, up to 10%. And we've had that for a long time. And when you go way up to northern Maine, they don't have ethanol in their gas, or they didn't used to, at least. But like in Portland, it's kind of the same gas we have. But you may notice a little bit of a reduction in fuel economy when you use the ethanol gas versus non-ethanol. And then if you have a car, and most cars should run okay with it, but if you have a car that is okay to use 15% ethanol, and you happen to see someplace that has E15, which means 15% ethanol, you'll say, oh, look, I can save 10 cents a gallon, but you might use more gallons. And the same thing if it's a car that is a true flex fuel car that can run 85% ethanol. You might say, oh, I can run this stuff. This stuff is cheaper, and but my gas mileage I lost 3 miles a gallon, and that's kind of ethanol. There's a company down in, I think they're in the Carolinas, called Sheetz, SHEETZ. They're big like like Racetrack, or one of those big gas island things that they have. You can buy pizza and a sandwich and get gas, and they actually sell a 15% ethanol, and they were reducing their prices. And sort of like we'll save you some money, come and buy our E15, but the downside of it is you lost fuel economy because of it. So it's kind of a weird trade-off. I personally think we should have additives in gas to keep the air as clean as possible. The problem is ethanol is mostly made from corn, and I like to eat corn. I'd rather we made ethanol out of garbage or plastic or something other than something that we're not going to eat. Yeah. I mean, but the farmers can make money selling corn to ethanol producers, so I guess it's good for them. But I'd rather have corn. But that's just me.
John, you have a great memory of recall to this stuff, because I've heard you explain this before. In my mind, I lose it. I've heard you, before a couple of years ago. I don't have the comprehension. You amaze me. But anyways.
Well, my wife doesn't think I can remember anything, so,
Yeah, I get it.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, good enough, Tom. All right, take care. Bye-bye. And you know what? Apparently our listeners are only named Tom. So, Tom.
That's it.
That's Toms. It. That's only Toms today, yeah.
Yeah. And happy anniversary.
Oh, for which one this time? Which anniversary?
Well, the wife and the 1 year at WATD.
Well, the wedding anniversary is not till December, so I do actually remember that date. But yeah.
Oh, okay. I guess that thing on Facebook was just you and your wife way back when.
Oh, who knows? Who knows? Facebook is a puzzle inside another puzzle to me. So.
Yeah, that's why you call it fake book.
Yeah, sometimes, yeah.
Yep. I had a question about a new Subaru I got, the adaptive cruise control.
Uh-huh.
Is there a way to calibrate that? For instance, I'll set it on adaptive cruise control and like 4 cars ahead, so it's supposed to slow down. But it comes ramming down on the car in front of me. Then it starts yelling at me, beep, 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 beep. And it finally hits the brakes. I'm like, that's supposed to be your job,
Well, it's supposed to be, but the Subaru EyeSight system is a pretty good system. But I got to tell you, when I have a car with some of this advanced cruise control, and especially if you're somebody who pays attention to traffic a little bit, and all of a sudden you get behind a couple of cars, and all of a sudden their speed drops to 45 or 50, and you're out on the highway. Normally you turn signal on, change lanes, go the speed limit, and get around them. And if you're sort of daydreaming a little bit, all of a sudden now you kind of look down, you're going 45 because everybody else is going 45, and then you decide either you're going to do something or the car in front of you slows down more, and then your car decides to stop. And my wife usually just says to me, will you just please shut that off, so and go back to just driving, because it can, some of these systems work really well. The one in the Cadillac kind of sees 3 cars in front of the car in front of you, so it has a better comprehension about what's going on. The Subaru one, where you can set it for how close a following distance you want. I found that when I drive a Subaru, I kind of pick the middle, even though I think it's following a little bit too close, but that seems to be the one that works the best. If I put it on the furthest one out, it seems like it gets lazy and confused. And if I put it on the close one, I feel like I'm way too close to the car in front of me. So I kind of pick the middle. But if I use the sort of old-fashioned rule of you should always leave 3 seconds of following distance between you and the car in front of you. So in other words, if a car in front of you goes by a shadow in the road, it should take you 3 seconds to get to that same spot. When I set it on sort of that middle setting, it's probably closer to 1.5 seconds or 2 seconds, which in my traffic safety mind isn't enough distance between me and the car in front of me. So, all of this stuff is good until it isn't. And, on a pretty open highway road, if you're traveling the Mass Pike on a quiet day, smart cruise control like that works really good. But if, you're trying to use it on, on 93, it's awful. And it doesn't replace, it doesn't replace Tom the driver. It replaces some stuff, but it doesn't replace you as a good driver, because you're the one that's got to be in control.
Yeah, and if you set it out too far, you get cut off all day long.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. The people that designed that had never driven in Boston or Massachusetts. Yeah. No, absolutely.
Yeah, it makes people mad too, because the brake lights come on. You're on a 30-mile-an-hour road or whatever, and it keeps braking. And
the other thing that happens is that you'll set it for maybe we'll say the equivalent of 10 car lengths or whatever the system is that they use, and it's watching the speed of the car in front of you. So if the car in front of you is going 55 and you're going 55, and you get somebody tailgating you because they don't think you're going fast enough, because you're not tailgating the guy in front of you, when in fact you're going at exactly the same speed as them, and you never know. And then all of a sudden they go around you, they pull in front of you, and then they realize, oh yeah, that car's going the same speed, but you weren't tailgating them because you were trying to be a safe driver.
Yeah. There should be a sign in the back, autonomous driving or something.
Well, Maybe, and it's funny you mention it because there is some. Just recently, Hyundai and Kia both have those systems in. I think it's in their electric cars, and what they do is when the car slows down quickly, there's software that turns the brake lights on, and what they found out is it wasn't doing it quite fast enough, and the brake lights were literally slamming on at the last minute. So they had to go in and do a software fix to make it so when the smart cruise control slowed the car down, it would flip the brake lights on. So
some of them flash real quick too.
Yep. So. In as much as I drive new cars with all the new safety features, sometimes I kind of like my car that was the base model and had pretty basic features in it because it just lets me drive.
Yeah, and we did an experiment one time. I threw a big ball in front of the car, at a low speed, and it didn't even hit the brakes like it's supposed to. I have the auto braking.
Yep.
It did not. It was a huge ball, like a beach giant ball.
Yep.
And my daughter rolled it in front of the car. Maybe I wasn't going fast enough.
Yeah, it could have been. Yeah, because it has to be a little bit faster than that because that's one of the things we do with this soft car test we do when we have a pedestrian that looks a little like looks like a cartoon character, but same idea. I did it with a trash barrel. I put a plastic trash barrel kind of in the parking lot at work one day, and tried to drive into it to see what would happen. And the first time it did nothing. It hit the trash barrel. So I put two trash barrels out side by side, and then it stopped.
My daughter had a deer slam into the front of her car. It didn't break or anything.
Yeah. Hey, Tom, we got to get going. That music means that I ran out of time for today. So, but thanks for calling in. All right, take care. Hey, that music means we need to take a break and not pay any more bills. We got to leave. So until next week, make sure you wear your seatbelt, drive safely, be good to your car, and if you see an emergency vehicle by the side of the road, slow down or move over. It saves lives. Thanks, everyone. Talk to you next week. Bye-bye.